the call of the Lord of Hosts is mysterious. It can be dramatic, it can be discreet, but if it is there, it is perceived and it is real, and it cannot be fabricated. We do well to remember that in any eventual vocations drive. It is God-made, not man-made, and one cannot replace the other. And therefore we see how the call of Isaiah is based in the unexpected, is based in the quite unfathomable, the beyond, the too high for man to reach, basically God at work, and the otherness of God perceived. Indeed, throughout the work of Isaiah, there is always this reference to the Holy One of Israel, Sanctus Israel. This strange chant has also come through the ages. Holy, holy, holy. Accompanied by various gestures across the centuries, the priest traditionally is slightly inclined as he pronounces these words, and still in many places one hears the Sanctus bell. It is rung in the Carthusian Rite, actually from the church bell. These things remind us of the otherness of God. When we come into the presence of God, we come also into His court, and this was perceived by Isaiah as well. He then perceives, when before the Lord of Hosts and His angels, the cherubim and seraphim, how he is unworthy to serve Him and to preach in His name. The prayer which in the old rite the priest says before pronouncing the Gospel has a reference to the coal coming from the altar. It is a reminder of the way in which we need to have those lips that pronounce the Gospel and preach in the name of the Lord. They need to be also purified before they utter a thing. For we cannot convincingly say what we do not express with our whole life. Charles de Foucault would say, "Ce que tu as à dire, dis-le de toute ta vie." What you have to say it with all your life. The one who has encountered God is then less likely to think in terms of man, and he will act in a way in which God is first and foremost perceived. If not, we are on an ego trip and using the slot of God to glorify ourselves. Things are much contaminated by impure intention, and the whole way in which man can be gratified by applause is not good, especially when those applause happen in church itself. What sense has it for people to applaud a homily, or indeed a chant in honor of God? Are we praising each other? Scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. This is not the scene that Isaiah saw, and certainly the prophets were not in any way seeking applause, and very often find quite the contrary coming their way. With regard to the way in which the Lord calls, it can be seen in the Gospel. It is direct here. And the magnetism of the personality of the Lord comes through also in our time on two levels. Firstly, again, as in the case of Isaiah, through the magnetism of the presence. The Lord is here and is calling you. Words said once just before the miracle of Lazarus. but also through those who, in some way, being in contact with the Lord, magnetize other souls. One can influence and be influenced by others. It is important that we attract people to the Lord's service. A person who does the contrary is a black house and not a lighthouse. And people who do not feel the healing of the gospel in assemblies where the gospel is proclaimed are going to be repelled. There precisely where the Lord wanted to act and where we got very much in the way. With regard to the way in which the apostle transmits what he has received, it is an evidence of the early kerygma that was being used. He is writing here before the codification of the Gospels as we have them, and so he is indicating precisely the way in which the faith initially was transmitted. He is close to the origin, and he is giving here a succinct version of the essence of the faith. We forget sometimes the essence of the faith. It is the risen one, an encounter with. That encounter is what people want and need. If they come to a liturgical assembly and don't get it, they will either switch off or go elsewhere. Let us not underestimate the power of mystery. God cannot be uttered, and to want to utter all to make him uttered is a mistaken approach. He can only be suggested. And the Spirit of God has given us a language of suggestion. If we jettison it in favour of the intellectual and the wordy alone, we are depriving ourselves and the whole people of God. We need experience, and profound, interiorized, beautiful liturgy is the best evangelizer of the soul of the deepest level. I'll never forget when still an evangelical Protestant, the power that the High Mass once had on a Sunday morning when I walked into a Catholic church. This I knew somehow was God, and it was the beginning. I just knew that there was something on that altar, and that the whole armour of protection that was there was not just man-made. This was the power of the centuries. It worked then, it works now, and God deserves the best. When given the best, he is best able to act, and all we have to do is get out of the way.